You're listening to the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by PAC-Hub. Around the Huddle, college sports beyond the game.
Hello and welcome into episode 21 of the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by PAC-Hub. Around the Huddle, where we talk about all things college sports beyond the game. My name is John Gross. Happy to have you with us today. It is the off-season for college athletics, but that does not mean that there is no news. In fact, far from it. I would say that we've had more news this summer and in the quote-unquote off-season than we do during the actual college sports season. Before we get into our episode today, a reminder that we are powered by PAC-Hub. Take a look at the bottom of your screen. Visit pac-hub.com. If you're a student athlete and you want to find your next home, this is your way to stand out, to make that connection with a coach. By signing up for PAC-Hub, you have a page that is populated with your stats, with your academic info, with your measurables, all sorts of ways, all sorts of specifications that allow coaches to find you, to find that missing piece. And then from a coach's perspective, it makes your job a lot easier. Rather than parsing through the NCAA portal and seeing just the name and the ID and having to Google search and do this and that and all that difficult time-consuming stuff, PAC-Hub is your one-stop shop to find that missing piece, to find that pitcher, to find that guard, whatever sport it may be. Check it out, pac-hub.com. Also some movement on the NIL front there, a lot of great resources as well. So take a look, pac-hub.com, PAC-Hub, connecting athletes with opportunities. And a reminder, as always, to subscribe, like, and comment. By subscribing to our YouTube channel, you will be notified every time that we post new content. By liking and commenting, it helps us get more engagement and allows more people to see our stuff, allows us to get more and more guests. Okay, speaking of guests, this man has the title of being our most frequent guest, without a doubt, and there's a good reason for that. He is an absolute expert. I'm lucky to call him a good friend. And there's nobody better to talk about what we're going to talk about today than this man. Our topic for today's show, federal legislation, executive orders related to NIL. We've talked about federal legislation maybe being the end game here. Is that the case? Is that going to happen? President Donald Trump also reportedly getting set to sign an executive order related to NIL. We're also going to touch on the House settlement now that it has been finalized, what that all looks like now in practice. So joining us today for the fourth time guest, the one and only Sam Finkel, the sports and entertainment associate attorney from Fox Rothschild. Sam, thanks for hopping on once again, my friend.
Happy to be here.
Look, whenever we end a show, it's never a goodbye, it's a see you later, because there's always going to be something going on in the world of college athletics that will make me text you and say, hey, you want to come on tomorrow?
And you know my answer will be absolutely.
I appreciate it. Truly grateful for your time. I know that you are on a lot of podcasts now and obviously busy with your normal job. So we appreciate you taking some time with us today. Okay. House settlement finalized earlier this summer. For those of you out there who want to learn more about the House settlement, all of the nitty-gritty, all of the details, how it impacts college athletics, go back and watch our previous episode with Sam from a couple of months ago where we broke that all down. Now that House has been finalized, now that the payments have begun, NIL Go is a thing, can you give us a lay of the land? How has the transition into this new world of college athletics been post-House?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just going to say first off that, any opinion is my own and this is not legal advice. You should definitely talk to a lawyer if you have concerns on this. You can talk to me as a lawyer if you want, but do that through the official medium and channel, which is through my firm. Anyway, let's get into it. So basically the House settlement, since last we talked, has been challenged, I believe 7 times right now. 3 of those challenges had to do with the back pay and in particular the Title IX issues, and they were by women athletes. One was regarding damages for walk-on athletes. Another was about the damage pool methodology. Another was about the college football playoffs, and another was by a basketball player. And there's going to be a lot more challenges, some having to do with probably the a lot of it right now is the back pay, but there's going to be some that have to do with challenges to, the Deloitte NIL Go program that has started. There's going to be challenges to that, which will be very interesting. And there's still the big issues that we talked about, such as the antitrust issues, the Title IX issues, and the employment status issues, the classification issues still exist and may be problematic.
Okay, so it's safe to say that House is finalized in some ways, but there's still certainly more to come in that regard.
Theoretically, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit today, but there is possibility that the challenges will shift, particularly the legal challenges, but also the in practice challenges too.
Okay, so we'll certainly keep monitoring that. In the meantime, executive branch, legislative branch, having their crack at things. Number one, earlier in the week, CBS reported that President Trump is planning on signing an executive order pertaining to NIL. ESPN added to that, adding some details to the report, stating that the order would, quote, require federal authorities to classify whether college athletes can be considered employees of their schools. There are expected to be other aspects of this executive order as well. But let's put this into layman's terms. What does this potential executive order, this reported executive order that will come from President Trump, actually mean?
So I just want to be really explicitly clear right now so the press has, at least I believe it was CBS who had the actual draft of it, the alleged draft of it. It's theoretically 7 pages long, and they really don't go into too much detail on it. So a lot of this will be kind of speculative, but it seems to be somewhat similar to the SCORE Act, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we really have to see what the draft looks like before we can really comment on that. Me in particular, I feel like it's difficult to comment on, but it is very pro-institution and anti-athlete, essentially. There are good things for the athlete. A lot of what they're trying to do is either codify the House settlement, which is more of what the legislative branch is doing. And it seems like the executive branch is more trying to, kind of circumvent a little bit. It's been reported that there might be limitations on how much NIL players can receive. And if that's the case, it would violate what was just agreed upon. I know Steve Berman, who is the lead attorney on the House settlement, is really against this executive order, potential executive order. Again, we have to actually see it. And I think it's important to look at this and not, it's a political issue, and there obviously are political, people involved in this. That is a big part of it. But I think it's important to, remove our politics hat for a second and just look at the effect of what this order is, because I'm sure everyone has their opinions on the president. But this, executive order, if it's going to be created in the way that's being portrayed, could have some issues for athletes in particular, and it could be very beneficial for the universities.
What do we know what power the president actually has in all of this?
I will answer this. It's kind of a delicate issue, because I feel as if this president in particular thinks he has more power than traditionally presidents have had in the past, in not just this area, but many areas. Again, I'm trying to keep the politics out of it a little bit, but I mean, it's really important to understand that I think it's just a fact that this administration and in the executive branch is using an unprecedented amount of power. I'll just leave it at that.
Right. Totally understood. Totally understood. So just to dive a little bit deeper into what you said, again, a lot of this might be speculation. We don't have the full 7 pages or whatever it may be in front of us. But you said primarily it seems like initial indications suggest that this will negatively impact student athletes. In what ways would it negatively impact student athletes?
Sure. There are 3 ways I could think of immediately that it would negatively affect them. So first off, it would likely try to remove the antitrust challenges. It would basically make an exception to antitrust. So there would be no way for them to challenge on antitrust grounds, which is one of the biggest avenues that was not touched necessarily in the House. It was touched to an extent in the House settlement, but the door was left open. Another way is that it would create that classification of them not as employees. And that's another big avenue that's taken away for student athletes to challenge. Essentially, that's a big component of it. And lastly, if there are limits to the NIL that they're able to receive, I mean, that's a natural restriction. So I'd say those are the three ways, from what I understand this executive order would be limiting to athletes for sure.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
The employee aspect of it is something that has been long talked about, right? Whether college athletes should be considered employees, the ramifications of that would be enormous. Can you go a little bit deeper into that whole discussion? What would it mean if athletes were to be classified as employees versus not being employees, which is what the status is now?
So yeah, there are some very big legal distinctions between employees and non-employees, so that you have to factor that in. But before I even answer that, I think I really want to talk a little bit about Tennessee's athletic director, Danny White. He revealed a plan to the press that he had where he would move to a collective bargaining model, transforming the student athletes to employee athletes. So he is in, and this is again a Power 4. A big time athletic director who is in favor of, the employee classification. And basically you would have a national employment organization that partners with players associations to create a modernized and improved ecosystem. And this model would include optional bargaining by sport. So each sport would have their own, opportunity to bargain, with the anticipation that football and basketball, men's basketball and probably women's basketball, would opt into this bargaining model. So this classification would change the rights, what is obligated for the schools, but it would also change the entire infrastructure that's currently contemplated with this matter.
Would that open the door for student athletes to unionize?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And I think that under Danny White's model, which there are challenges to it, but I kind of like the idea, is you would have that unionization, or at least the opportunity to unionize. And there are problems with unionization too. I mean, the biggest problem is people at the top, like the biggest potential earners could be hurt in the process. If you think about it, unions try to argue for everybody. And when you're so far ahead of everybody, you're naturally going to be brought down by a union. So that's like an athlete perspective that could hurt them. But in general, unions tend to help the big mass of athletes. And that's a big thing. And I think it's important. But I think it's important to understand and recognize that it's not beneficial for every athlete.
Right. Well, Kane Coulter certainly smiling, listening to that discussion. For those who aren't familiar, Kane Coulter, former Northwestern quarterback, led a push to allow college athletes to unionize. That was about 10, 15 years ago at this point? Maybe a little bit more than that. Yeah. Things have changed significantly.
And he's not the only one that's tried. I mean,
Dartmouth basketball had a movement, right?
And I believe there was a women's soccer player that tried as well. But don't quote me on that.
So there is a precedent for this movement towards potential unionization for college athletes. Okay, so anything else on the executive order that you want to touch on before we go to the SCORE Act?
Yeah, I would just say it's in flux until we see a draft. And even then, I'm not even sure what, like you said, enforcement mechanisms they're able to actually do. So we'll see.
Okay, on to the SCORE Act, which is the legislative side of things. Congress currently working on this federal bill. The SCORE Act was earlier this week approved by the Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade Subcommittee of the House of Representatives. It passed on a 12-11 party line vote, all 12 Republicans in the subcommittee voting in approval, all 11 Democrats voting against the bill. With it passing at the subcommittee, it now moves on to the House Energy and Commerce Committee. This bill supported by, it seems, the majority of Republicans in the House. However, it has received backlash from the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic committees, in addition to athletes.org, which is an advocacy group made up of college athletes. Okay, what is the SCORE Act? What does this mean?
Yeah, so it's HR 4312. It stands for Student Compensation and Opportunity Through Rights and Endorsement Acts.
Can I just quickly jump in for 1 second? One of my favorite things about Congress is how they make these bills have such clever names. The acronyms are always related to what the bills are about, and they just throw some words in there to make it work. I love it.
So my question for you, and this is kind of a fun thing, do you think that they come up with the names first, and they're like, now we have to make it about this, or do you think that that's like a last thing that they do? I'm sure it's a fun process.
Yeah, I think it would probably be the last thing they do. They want to make it relevant to what it's about. It's like with an author writing a book. Do you write the conclusion first? Do you write the title first? Like, how do you sequence that? But I've always just been interested by that. So maybe we'll have to do some digging. Maybe you'll get a congressperson on this podcast and we'll talk about it.
And to be fair, it is a stretch, right? Because student compensation and opportunity through rights and enforcement. It's not Scoutra.
A couple letters missing there.
Yeah. So, but we have to give them credit because that is somewhat creative.
Yes.
One thing I would like to just highlight that you talked about. I actually think there's a couple ways I want to approach this. But first off, it is not necessarily partisan because there were two co-sponsors that were of the Democratic Party. And so that is something that's somewhat unique and novel with this, especially because what they're trying to do is essentially codify the House settlement. That's a big part of what they're trying to do. However, they're also adding their own elements, and we'll get into that. But I think it's important to kind of go off what happens next. I like that you said it's going to go to the committee next, and it is. And so they'll do a markup, which is what they did last time, where they go through the actual bill. And we don't have a copy of the proposed bill. We have a copy of the proposed bill that was pre-markup of that subcommittee meeting, which would pass. Now they'll do that basically another iteration of that with the committee. And assuming it passes, it will go to the House floor. Then it will be voted on by the House. And if it passes the House, it'll go to the Senate. And if it goes to the Senate, and the Senate, by the way, is working on their own version of this. I know Ted Cruz is doing some negotiating with Democratic senators to try to get a bipartisan approach, because this will not pass unless it has bipartisan support, because it's particularly in the Senate. It'll have a lot of trouble in the Senate, and that's just because it's a numbers game. At the end of the day, there's 53 Republican senators and 47 Democratic senators. You need 60 in this case. So this could go, it's already gone further than any other legislation that has been done for NIL. So I think that's just an important thing to realize up front. But that's not to say it's going to face some challenges, because like you said, there is a lot of opposition, but there's also party line opposition. If you look at the two Democratic House representatives that supported it, one's from Alabama and one's from Oregon. So it's you have a decent amount of diversity between the two, but it is only two Democratic representatives, and I believe there were 5 Republican representatives that supported it, including who proposed it. So,
and Alabama and Oregon, both states with prominent college athletic programs, so clearly catering towards their constituents, understandably so. As you said, we don't have an actual text of the post markup bill, but do we have any idea, just from what we saw previously, who the winners and losers of this bill potentially may be if it does pass?
So this one's a little bit more complicated, right? Winners and losers wise, because there are some benefits to the student athletes, but it also is probably more institution beneficial. And part of that is because one of the things it guarantees, which is kind of interesting, is that student athletes are able to get health care, mental health, financial literacy, career counseling, all these things that are guaranteed by like federal law, which would be really cool. It does something with agents. You have to register, and if you don't, there's certain protocol, which is a good thing because agents can take advantage. So there is some protectionism elements there, which is good. There's also there's a part where they require student fees to no longer be used for athletic programs. So it would just be the revenue from the athletic programs that be used and not student fees. So that's a good thing. It does not mention any of the back pay issues. It does try to codify a lot of the things from the House settlement. It goes a step further because it also mentions the employment issue. It makes them not employees. And then there's the preemption, which could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, right? Because so the way laws work is generally if there's a conflict between federal and state law, federal law controls, unless you can use both. And in this case, it would be what is called like field preemption. So it's the entire field would be preempted by this federal law, which is a good thing. There's standard, there is uniform standard, which is good. And I think that there are some positives to it. But again, there would also be that antitrust exception, which would take away a lot of the challenges that student athletes can bring, that and the classification issues. And it also doesn't touch Title IX. So there are some issues in those regards. However, like I said, it's still being marked up, and they're going to have to figure out. What's interesting about these is I feel like everybody who's trying to do it, for the most part, and you can't say everyone, is trying to make the best system. They just disagree on what that system is. And I think that's kind of the crux of this issue for however long it has existed, right? I think there has been a fundamental shift because people have accepted that the system was broken, right? And players deserve to be paid and compensated because these schools were benefiting. And yeah, any type of legislation or executive order is going to favor those that have the money, that can lobby, and their interests can be protected, right? And that's something you have to recognize. But at the same time, they're at least moving in the right direction. And I think that's worth acknowledging.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
I think you bring up a really good point there. It seems like everyone is well-intentioned with this. The quote that I keep seeing is something along the lines of, we want to maintain the integrity of college athletics, which is a uniquely American pastime, right? But But what does maintaining the integrity of college athletics look like? That might look like a different thing for different people who value different aspects of it. Is it having the Olympic sports, or is it paying players? Is it this? Is it that? So the end. Do you think the end game for some of these legislatures might look different, or do you think that they are somewhat on the same page for what they actually want college athletics to look like at the end of the day?
No, I don't think they're anywhere on the same page. I think you have traditionalists that want to see it return to the former glory. And then I think you have progressive people that recognize that these college players have been exploited. And I don't say exploited as a bad word. That's just a general legal term to say, like, you use them to make money. It certainly has negative connotations in plain language. And honestly, some of them are applicable here. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to come up with a compromise. And compromises do leave room to be desired, right? I mean, that's the whole definition of a compromise. Really, the big anecdote people say in law school is, if you both walk away unhappy, then we have a good deal. I know that's what an arbitrator said. So
I love that. I always like to say, don't let good be the opposite of perfect. Like, if there's some progress there, take it. And it sounds like, depending on who you ask, they feel there might be at least some progress in this bill. You also mentioned something earlier that I found interesting. You said that this is the furthest along that one of these bills has actually gotten. Congress has a lot on its plate, a lot of hot button topics currently being debated in the nation's capital. Why do you think that now is the time where Congress is starting to act? And do you think that there actually is enough momentum for this to get pushed across the finish line?
So 2 reasons. I think the biggest one is because of House. I think the House settlement really just opened and paved the path for this opportunity. And 2, I think because there's bipartisan support, even if it's marginal bipartisan support, those 2 working together helped this pave the way to where we are today. However, we've seen these legislations fail. And I don't think there is, a good justification to say this won't fail. And I think it'll fail for probably the same reasons that other legislation failed, because, you can't get everyone on board with it. And I think that's at the end of the day, the biggest part of it.
Interesting. As you mentioned before, the Senate needs 60 votes to pass this. The House simply needs a majority. But to get 60 senators to agree on anything is very difficult these days. Okay. Last question for you. And I feel like I've asked this probably a million times, but is federal legislation still the ideal outcome here? Do you think that's the one thing that could stabilize, solidify, whatever word you want to use, in regards to the college athletics landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I was a big advocate for it until I saw what the bill looked like. And then I was like, the thing is, I think that there's too many things that are left out of the bill for it to solve all the problems. And probably there isn't federal legislation that will solve all the problems. I think there needs to be some uniformity. And I think that the legislation can do that. And that would be a good thing. But I honestly, I go back and forth because we represent both athletes and institutions, and I want both to be successful. But I think it's important to recognize that institutions have the money and the resources to be successful, just because they are these institutions with long and storied traditions with big piggy banks, and players are just individuals. And the thing is, individuals don't have power by themselves. They have power together. And that's where unionization could be important. So, I mean, I go back and forth because from my job's perspective, I want to see both win, but I also I don't want to see athletes taken advantage of.
Is it possible for both to win?
I think so, but I don't think it'll be easy. I mean, none of this has been easy, but I don't think it can be done easily, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Sam, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for hopping on today. And again, it's not a goodbye to see you later. I'm sure that we're going to have you on again at some point. Always appreciate it, my friend. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. There you have it. Sam Finkel, our resident sports attorney here on the Around the Huddle podcast, always gives us some amazing insight. We appreciate his time, his insight, and we look forward to having him back on. And again, a big thanks to all of you for joining us, making us a part of your day, making us a part of your regular podcast listening. If you'd like to listen to more of our episodes, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Also like and comment on our videos. Helps us get more engagement so we can have more episodes, have more people see our shows, and get more amazing guests on, just like Sam. Again, a big thanks to all of you for joining us. We are powered by PAC-Hub, PAC-Hub.com. Check them out. We will talk to you soon. This has been episode 21 of the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by